organization. I'm really happy to be here. It's the first time I'm here at PODIM, but I'm really glad that I met a lot of companies. However, I have to tell you one thing. I'm feeling slightly lonely up here, and the reason is because out of the 150 companies that applied to come here, I found 5 only in fintech. 5 that made a little cross on fintech. So, okay. However, I found 71 companies that are in like marketplace and in consumer. So that's great. But let me tell you to everybody, is without fintech, your companies wouldn't be able to survive. So you need at least a payment solution in there, or you need anything else, or very close to that. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about fintech. Maybe I start just with myself. Not going to work that. About me. Oh la 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 la. My computer is getting completely crazy. Okay, I'm just going to start quickly. I'm half Swiss, I'm half French. I was all my life in innovation, mobile payments, etc. I lived in Switzerland, worked there. I had my first startup as well there. Then I lived for 9 years in San Francisco, where I was doing venture capital, and I was working for Visa as well there. Then I moved to Rio de Janeiro, nice place, where I had also as well a startup, and now I live in London. As you can see, I worked in really large corporations, but always in conjunctions with like startups. So I can really rely to what I heard here over the last 2 days. What the best way for a startup to like work with a corporate, or what's the best way for a corporate to work with a like startup. Let me give you maybe some stats. Let's start here. Global investment in fintech is massive. 17.5 billion US dollars, it went up. This is mainly because in China you had 3 really large deals. LaterPay was one, and also 2 other ones. And it's the first time also that you see that actually like China is larger than the US. Never happened before. Overall, you see that the amount of the deals went slightly down. And the reason is also because of all uncertainties in the world. You heard before also Donald Trump, obviously Brexit, and many other things that fear the people. Let me give you some stats. I'm really sorry about my computer. I don't want to bore you with all the stats, but I just want to show you that there is a lot outside of Slovenia. I heard that also over and over. So I think you have like 2 million inhabitants here in Slovenia, but think larger, think really big. I hear here also many people asking always startups like, well, what about the US? What about UK? What about China? And it's really important for you, think large, think always big. You see there's a population of 7.4 billion people. My God. You have huge internet users. You have a lot of social accounts, and you have an unbelievably amount of devices out there, mobile devices, that can all go on the internet. As a little comparison, actually, you're seeing here that there's, I'm really sorry again, 4.2 billion toothbrushes only out there. So there is less toothbrushes in the world than actually mobile phones. And then also on the other side, you see the 2 billion adults are unbanked still. Now the good news is there it went down by about 20%. We still have 85% of all transactions are somehow with cash. So there's a massive opportunity again for all of you. 1 in 3 SMEs receive no loans in whole Europe. Again, a big opportunity. And the last one I like as well, I'm sure you have seen this already on the internet, is 71% of US millennials rather go to a like dentist to show their teeth instead of listening to their bank. So that means when you look at what Mr. Bill Gates said, he said, banking is essential, but banks are not. What does that mean? It's not that no bank is essential anymore. However, the banks have to rethink, you heard that also from Nova KBM, is that they have to rethink what exactly a customer expectations is, or what exactly customer needs are. Very important. And they have to work on that very hard. But for you all, there is a massive opportunity out there to do new apps, and to work on that. But I'm going to show you that a little bit. So let's talk about the trends in 2017. So you have removing the frictions. You heard that also yesterday already. Very important. You cannot do a purchase with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 like clicks on a mobile phone. No, it doesn't work anymore. It should be 1, 2, maximum 3 clicks. That's it. Machine learning, you just heard it before. AI, VR, and AR, very, very, very big in fintech. It's about to come, and there's a huge opportunity in front of us as well. Also the same with blockchain. I'm going to talk to you about this afterwards. Rise of insurtech and regtech. So as you know, everything is like tech today. Art tech, wine tech, sale tech, everything you have. And we have also insurtech and regtech. Then also the PSD2 forces banks and fintech to partners. Whoever knows about PSD2, I will also say something about this, but it really tells at the bank you must work with other parties as well in order to offer an optimal banking solution. Reform of the bank boardroom, fintech integration with social media, I think that is going to be very big, and then APIs and open banking, that's clear. So let me talk to you a little bit about opportunities there. So let's look at robo-advisors and like personal finance. So you see there is already a large bank like UBS, also BBVA involved in this whole thing. If you look at it, it's 40% of all the consumers are willing to pay more for a product if they can first somehow experience it. Also, data visualization is very, very big. Imagine you can talk with your advisor to make a change or to make an investment or anything like that by holding his glasses and really seeing him in front of you moving things around. Watch out, technology convergence, AI everywhere, you heard it before as well, and again, data visualization. Let me tell you just a very small story if this thing is not getting crazy. It is getting crazy, okay? I'm sure some of you already have an Alexa at home, or maybe a Google Home, and you speak to this, you say, Alexa, please make the light on, please like turn the light off, etc., etc. But you can also do shopping, you can also do like finances, etc. Now imagine you have also in your ear a very small earbud that is listening to this, also answering your phone calls, etc. Now all of this is saving whatever you were thinking, whatever you were saying into a cloud. In the cloud, this is like another brain of yours that you use with your own brain. And you know maybe if you have a smell or if you hear a keyword or something similar, you immediately have old thoughts you had before coming back up, and then you can make an optimal decision afterwards in finance. So you have one bank who is actually exactly doing this, and then they work with AR and VR to see how do you want to reposition your portfolio investment is to make an optimal decision. Now, all of this requires a lot of data. We heard this over and over again. Have you ever heard of zettabyte? Zettabyte. I've never heard of it before. Zettabyte is 1 zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes. Massive. And that's going to be around in 2020. So we're going to have a lot of data around. We're all actually walking data machines. If you look at the next thing, in order for us then, and you heard before Internet of Things as an example, to move data from one point to the other, you want to make sure that this data is very secure, and B, that it has no interception in the middle. And that's where we're talking about blockchain. So blockchain is becoming really, really big. In 2016, you had 132 deals. It went slightly down. Why is that? Because you had a hype in blockchain. So you had a lot of people were talking about blockchain. Then it went down, and now it's really coming out of the labs. As in investment, you can see there is more in there than, I'm sorry about that. And you can see also a lot of financial institutions are now doing like pilots with blockchain that really maintain blockchain. However, blockchain, and a lot of people do not see that, is also something else. It's a smart contract. You can do many, many other things with this. I'm just going to show you an example afterwards. Watch out, in this area is really Internet of Things. You heard it before, apps and cloud. Standards and regulations, that's very, very big because there's a lot of regulators who have no clue how to handle blockchain. And they're really waiting now to see how they have to act and react. Where could you also use your blockchain? So I have there like 2 companies. Actually, both of them are in London at home, and they do blockchain. One is doing blockchain actually for diamonds. So a diamond, if you are buying a diamond for your loved one, you want to know that this diamond really came out of the mine, went to everywhere where you heard it went, and then you buy it. It's a clean diamond, and there has no bad history behind it. It's the same thing with wine. If you are buying a wine, you want to make sure this wine is really correct. Or you have on the other side Vastari, who is doing this for art as well. So art, as you can see, this painting, for instance, was sold last year for $300 million. And you want to make sure if you spend that kind of money, that where is the painting from, where was it before, etc. So there's a lot of new companies, emerging players coming up there. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. RegTech, I'm going to be very short, also in the interest of time. RegTech, I think it's very, very interesting what you can do with RegTech. They raised in the past year over 3 billion. The interesting thing is that most of the RegTech deals nowadays are happening in the US and not in Europe. 9% in the UK, 8% in Germany, and you have some other ones afterwards. However, I have a difficulty to understand that, because if you look at Europe, it's so complex, all the rules and the regulations in there. I think there will be a wonderful opportunity in there. There's lots of CVC money also in there. So lots of large corporates who want to invest in this because they want to make sure that they can always keep up with new regulations, etc. Many people, to me, young students, they are coming to me and they're saying, well, but you know, regulations is really, really boring, or like security is very boring, I really want to do something else more fun. However, I always say boring is equal dollars. If you do it correctly, you can make a lot of money out there. Let's have a quick chat on payments and remittances. So in the payment area where I'm from, actually, originally, is $8.3 billion was invested in there in the last years, in the last 4.5 years, and a little bit over 1,000 deals. In terms of opportunities for all of you, look at this. This is just enormous, gigantic. $2.3 trillion US in 2015. We expect this to go up in 2020 to 4.5 trillion US dollars. So there is a massive opportunity in retail and also in travel. So all of you, all the 71 companies who I've seen here or who I've heard of, who are in marketplace or in consumer, they have very, very large opportunities in there. What I also like there is if you look at the preferred payment method, so far, when you go online and you want to purchase something, you always give your credit card, or mostly actually in the US or in England. However, this is going to go down actually in 2020, and if you look at the bank transfers, we expect this to go up, and we expect this also to go up like for prepaid. So that's maybe something also to think how you want to handle with your consumers or with your customers. That, I think, is another interesting slide as well. It's the first time that consumer used more smartphone and tablets to do online shopping than normal computers. I think this is an amazing slide. So we finally go over the 50%, and that also means that you have to adapt your websites or create even new apps. That's very, very important to also capture all these consumers. In terms of opportunities, or watch out, for next year, we have the next generation like POS. So POS is one of these machines. You go to a customer, or to a merchant, and you're using your credit card in there, so there's going to be a lot of innovation in there. You have also the buy now and like pay later 2.0, so we saw that already. PayPal is doing this and other ones. This is going to be also a new innovation wave expected there. Then, as I said before, PSD2, you can ask any bank, they all know about that, they're all actually really scared about it. But I think it's an amazing opportunity for you, because as of next year, January 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the banks have to grant access to any third parties who want to use a consumer's account. And so before you had to go always through the bank, but if the consumer allows you as a third party to go into the bank account with a very strong authentication, of course, he will allow that. So that's a huge thing where the bank has to rethink a lot, and there are also a lot of opportunities for you. Then obviously blockchain, I already talked about this, and the Internet of Things as well. If you're in a car, you want to do a shopping directly out of your car or out of the plane or wherever you want. So there's a lot of opportunities in payments. Now, Urban asked me to also talk a little bit about personal experiences which I had, or which I saw. So as you could see before, I was working for Visa for a while. And there's a very interesting example where really the history has shown that large corporates must really think and work with startups together, otherwise they're going to miss a huge opportunity. And I picked a very old opportunity that is now over 15 years old, but at least all of you know it. So Visa, imagine this, had the opportunity is to buy PayPal 3 times. 3 times they were able to buy PayPal. 3 times they came to Visa and said, can you please buy us? And they said no. First time they said no, way too small startup, we're not interested in them. Second time they said no because they said, well, you know, online payments is only 5% of overall. Why should we bother about that? Third time the excuse was, well, you know, PayPal was the largest merchant of us because they all use the credit cards on the back end in order to make sure that you can do the payment. And they said again no. Afterwards, eBay obviously bought them, as you all know. And the first thing they did afterwards is to say, you have to link your bank account now with PayPal. And if you want to still use your credit card to link to your account, you have to pay an extra 3%. Ouch. So Visa was like, really like, hang on, we have done a huge mistake here. So what does that mean? That means unrealized financial return of close to 60 billion US dollars. Imagine this. And now, PayPal has a market cap of almost 60 billion. And if Visa would have just invested in this company at the right time, they would have had a seat at the table and would have been able also to act on that. What can corporates do? I'm sure there is also some corporates in there. So as I just explained on an example, you have the complacents. So please be less arrogant towards like startups. It's very important, and I see now today still a lot of banks who are saying, well, you know, we have all this money, we don't have to bother, we can do that internally. Wrong. I think that's wrong. Actions rather than cosmetic. I see this also over and over again, that a lot of large corporates, they think, well, you know what, I'm just gonna like sponsor an event, show up once or twice, and that's it. No, get active with startups, work with them, explain them how you could engage with them, what you're gonna do, what are the objectives together, etc. So really very, very important. I saw this over and over in all the companies. Seat at the table, that's very, very important also for corporates. If you do a small investment in a company, you automatically have a seat on the table. That means you're on the board, you hear about the new things, and you have a right of first refusal. So if anything new comes out, you can immediately react and say, we want to be the first one to launch that thing. And a lot of large corporates actually don't see that because they always want to invest or actually immediately buy the company and say, no, 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 this is wrong. Just buy a small piece and work with them. And then please, large corporates, be straightforward. I also saw that. How many times they say, yeah, we don't know, maybe. And the poor like startup is trying and trying to work with them, and you don't have that money to wait and wait and wait. I'm almost done. Last slide. For the startups, choose carefully a corporate partner. You heard yesterday Arnaud also saying that on the 500 startups. Be really careful with who you're going in bed. I give you an example. There's a very large insurance company in Europe, and they have a corporate venture arm. That corporate venture arm is completely independent. I spoke with the CEO of that insurance company, and he said, you know what, I have no clue in what they invest and what they do. And that's wrong. You don't want to have that. Unless you want to have very dumb money, you can do that. But if you want to have smart money, you shouldn't do that. What problem are they trying to solve? Think about that. The amount of young startups I've seen like coming to me at Visa and saying, we can save the world, we can do that, our product is the best, etc. No, try to think what is the problem they're trying to solve. Speak to the decision maker. It's clear to everybody, but one thing I learned in Europe especially, much less in America, is the correlation to the bonus. And I've seen this in the UK over and over again. Try to understand if the objective of the person you're speaking with is related to the bonus, because then you have a much bigger chance within that year to really launch. Pull corporate in as an advisor. If it really helps you, pull him in as advisor, always very helpful. And then CVC does not mean exclusivity. A lot of startups are very scared is to go in bed with one large bank, for instance, because then they say, well, hang on, all the other banks won't work with me afterwards. This is not true. I have seen this over and over again, that I had actually one company where I had Visa, American Express, and MasterCard, all three investing in there. It is a little bit more complex how you handle the things, but it is possible. Last slide. If you have too much connectivity, you have one of the hotels in Germany, actually, who invented a very interesting room where you just have a switch off and switch on because you're in a cage. You have no more wireless, no more phone, no more nothing. So after that conference, if you feel like doing a holiday, that's a place where I recommend you to go. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much. Now, we have a couple questions here. And the first is, do you think there's still people that are insecure to pay services or goods online with these new technologies? What's your take on that?
Yes, I would say in Europe more than in the US, absolutely. And I think it's largely due to medias. I think it's largely also due to people who are maybe less used to use like credit cards. Electronically, which in the US you're much more used to that. So when I was 9 years in the US, I non-stop used credit cards for everything. And for instance, in my home country, in like Switzerland, you see still a lot of people walking around in their wallet with 1,000 francs, which is completely crazy when nobody else would do it. Yes, so I would say.
How would you change that out of interest? You said it's largely related to the media. How would you kind of promote a shift in mindset?
I think it's the easiness, and it's showing that there is trust and also security around there, and it's education. So it's really education and in a culture.
The next question is here, which I also have the questions here is, what is your opinion about cryptocurrencies? How do you see the future of them?
So that's a very interesting question. So we have a lot of cryptocurrencies already out there. For instance, air miles are also currencies, or you have bitcoins and you have all these things. There is still a lot to be done there, I think, especially because you do not have the central bank in the middle, as you know, and that's a completely new way of thinking. I believe in this. I believe it will be also coming, but I think it will take probably a couple of years more to do that. Yeah.
Okay, here's an interesting question. Banks won't be necessary for financial transactions. Is there an existing tech alternative to consultancy services? Will banks be transformed to consultancy companies? That's interesting. So not just a bank, but the real banking.
Okay. Wow, that's a long question.
It is, yeah. It's got
so
four
when I first read that one sentence from Bill Gates, I immediately had like thinking, you know, when you go to Switzerland now, you have these massive old like bunkers from the Second World War, so that the banks would like store your cash in there, and that everything is just electronically. And if you really want your cash, you really have to ask for it. They have to go in there and also bring back the cash. So I think the banks will always be necessary, but I really believe in the example of Nokia, who thought that they do not have to change a lot, missed a lot, and then now you know where Nokia is. And I think with the banks it will be the same thing. So the banks will be always needed, but they have to reinvent themselves.
And I think the next question kind of leads up to the next thing is, when will physical money disappear?
That's a $1 million question. If you can answer that, you immediately have a job at Visa, MasterCard, or wherever you want. When will it disappear? It will really take a long time. There is a lot of very interesting initiatives already going on there. So I give you one example, which I'm sure you read about it. In Africa, M-Pesa. M-Pesa allowed a lot of people who had really small money and no bank account to certainly act electronically and to send money back and forth electronically. So if you look in emerging countries, there's a lot of opportunity to reduce that cash. In our countries, you see that also with contactless. For instance, in the UK, also here, a lot of people are now only paying with contactless. I already tested contactless in 2002 at Visa. So all these technologies really need a long time until it comes. So the answer to this, I would probably say, yes, it will once disappear, but it will take a long time, unfortunately.
So no exact date from you?
Huh?
No exact date?
No.
But is it like 5 years or 50 years or, I mean?
My wild guess, it will be probably at least another 5 to 10 years, at least. Yeah, that's my wild guess. But
let's see where we are in 5 or 10 years. We can say you were wrong or you were so right.
Yeah.
You were a banking genius. How do you see the change of behavior patterns changing in both the European Union and the US? And are Europeans becoming more e-commerce savvy?
Yes, I do believe that, and the numbers also see that the EU countries are really catching up with United States, especially the UK, I would say, France, and other countries. If you take, for instance, Germany as an example, the problem there was really how do you pay, and it's much easier to pay with a credit card or using, for instance, Apple Pay now. And a lot of people feel now more comfortable finally to use this, because before you had to use your bank, or for instance, like Giro Bank, etc., and it was more complicated to enter and more complicated to do all the APIs behind it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
We'll see if the audience reacts with 5 more questions, then no. If not, then they're happy. Interesting. How do you manage and look after such a high amount of companies? What's your secret?
That's quite hard. So I'm a huge fan of working with the company hands-on. So I was already doing this at Visa when I started there in a team of like 5 people. We were only 5 people who were doing all these investments. We were really told by our boss, like, you have to be hands-on. So if you make an investment, it's not just making the investment and then run away and say, I don't care what's happening. You really have to make sure that also this company meets the right people within the organization, and that's very important for you. And also, if there is any slowness or if somebody doesn't react within the organization, you were like an extended business development arm within the organization to really push things forward. So to answer your question, it is very hard to do that because there's a lot of companies and your heart says you want to help everybody, but you can't do that, obviously. And you just try to focus on the companies that really try to solve the problem of the large corporate, and you help them to move forward. That's why I said that before.
Okay, thank you. Here's an interesting question also. N26 versus the mobile apps of the offline banks. So, you know, what's your opinion of the app and the whole thing that N26 has been pushing versus the new mobile banking solutions of the more traditional banks?
That question I would have to answer afterwards. Wait, versus mobile app and versus offline banks, yeah. So I'm a strong believer of mobile apps. So, okay, I don't understand exactly the question there. You mean mobile apps?
I think what they mean is kind of, if you look at the way N26 does it as a mobile solution versus the way banking, like traditional banks, kind of also tackle the whole mobile app
okay, now I see.
interface and so on.
So what is meant here is all the new banks that are coming up, like Atom Bank, etc., all the digital banks.
I think it's probably N26 specifically versus traditional banking.
I believe in N26. Let's handle that. I don't know, who asked that question? Anonymous?
Yes,
because
that's tricky.
More than happy to talk about that afterwards. I'm going to be outside, so if ever somebody wants to come out.
So if Anonymous, you want to break your anonymity,
anonymous,
go
exactly,
over there.
Look at me. Then how do you see the change of behavior?
We had that one already.
Okay.
So in that sense, Alexandre, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.